Happy Independence Day weekend. 4th of July weekend on the 5th of July in the heartland from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. North of Columbus, south of Cleveland, it's time for the Honda Indy 200 at Mid-Ohio this weekend and practice one with the NTT IndyCar Series. We've had a few sprinkles today. There is a slight chance of rain before the afternoon is over. It looks great for tomorrow and Sunday. And we are just about set to go as we hit the midpoint of the IndyCar season. And we are green for practice one for round 9 of 17. Kevin Lee and James Hinchcliffe. And there are plenty of storylines to go through in the time that we have this afternoon. And Hinch, I think it starts with the beginning of a new era. Internal combustion engines are still very much a part of an Indy car, but now there is a hybrid component.
They're not the only part that is used for propulsion in these race cars now. This is something that the series, the teams, the manufacturers have been working on for quite some time. It was announced a while back that this would be the move for IndyCar, and we are finally here, the debut of the hybrid system. Different from some of the other hybrid systems we see in race cars around the racetrack. You see some of the stats here. It's about 60 horsepower on its own. You can use it simultaneously in conjunction with push-to-pass to have a 120 horsepower boost, which, let me tell you, that's a lot of extra power in the race car. You get about a 5-second run as a full pull on the charge, but there's a certain amount of energy per lap that you can expel. And it ends up to about 2 full charges worth. So lots for the teams and drivers to play with. Lots for them, Kevin, at this point to figure out.
Well, another one of the things that is brand new this weekend, it's another brand new driver in the number 51 Dale Coyne racing car. And this has been something in development for several years. Toby Sowery has had some time in Indy Next, won a race in 2019 when it was Indy Lights, was third in the championship, did a few races last year, has been doing a lot of sports car racing. He is getting his debut weekend in an Indy car in the number 51 Global Karting League Vuzix Honda. And this is basically his second time in an Indy car, so it's quite nice for everyone to simply sit in the pit lane and let Toby have a private test session here for the first few minutes.
Look, I'm sure Toby doesn't mind it either, having the racetrack to himself as he turns his first laps in an Indy car in quite some time. And, you know, as you say, he's been doing a lot of sports car driving.
Deploy when you want.
You say deploy when you want. Not only is he getting used to an Indy car, he's having to get used to an Indy car with this new toy in it that the teams are still learning. The drivers are still learning, and you can see he is chasing that thing quite a bit already, Kev. He's got a lot of corrections, a lot of inputs on the steering wheel through almost every corner, not wasting any time trying to get up to speed and find the limits here of that number 51 machine.
He did a GT3 car at Spa last weekend. He led at Watkins Glen in IMSA WeatherTech Championship racing a couple of weeks ago in an LMP2, and here he is making his IndyCar debut.
Hey guys, as we ride on board here with Pietro Fittipaldi in the Ray All Letterman Lanigan Racing Machine, the number 30 Honda, you can see on your left-hand side, that graphic now has the hybrid status. That's the battery status, or the charge status of the ESS. We'll get into some of the technical terms here in a little bit, but you can see when it's charging, you can see when Pietro is deploying it. So take a look here out of turn 2. You see it regenning all the way up to 100%. He's likely to have a full pull on this charge right here. Starts deploying all the way down to 0. It doesn't read 0. Keep a little bit of charge in it in case they need it for emergencies or restarting the race car. But this is just cool. Every time he's off the throttle and on the brakes, you see that regeneration is happening. You can adjust the rate at which it regens. And this is all the exciting new era of IndyCar racing. These teams and drivers learning lots in these first few laps out here.
And you can essentially, kind of sounds like you could do 2 pulls of it, or if you want to call it pushes, of the hybrid. Let's see if he does another one before the alt start finish line. That's where it marks it. He did not.
No, he'd already passed the alt start finish line. So as he comes into the pits here, and there's rules about how much charge you can have when you go back to the garage. In pit lane, the entire system is deactivated. You cannot regenerate, you cannot deploy, you cannot use the starter. That's another cool thing about this new hybrid system, Kev, is that drivers have the ability to start a stalled race car, but only out on the racetrack.
Charlie, tell us something about Joseph Newgarden.
Yeah, with these new hybrid units, guys, there are going to be some teething problems here in pit lane. We heard some radio on that install lap, the number 2 PPG Chevrolet for Team Penske having some issues. Joseph got some alarms. Let's listen to it.
Just a heat soak issue, evidently. Doing everything else, talk to us.
Still seeing this alarm just across the data. I just cleared out now, turn 2.
Makes sense. We think you did the sequence correct. It's just not working.
So that's some information there from the timing stand. They're saying, okay, Joseph, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just part of the sequencing of this new unit. Like we said, just figuring out how it all works. Some of these teams, even in that install check, doing some additional checks, some additional cooling for those hybrid units.
Now, Hinch, as we watched him go through turn 2 there, it's going to recharge
Regardless. For 4 laps.
Just because he brakes, right? He doesn't need to do anything to recharge in that circumstance.
No, so there's 2 ways that you can recharge. You can have an automatic recharge, which is what you'll do most of the time. So anytime you're off pedal, off throttle, it will use that energy from the rear axle to charge the capacitors. Or you do have a function on the steering wheel, the driver under power, when you are on throttle, you can pull a paddle to actually have some manual regeneration as well. There are different scenarios where that will come into play, but for the most part, you're going to see it all happening automatically. But what's interesting here is we ride on board with Joseph Newgarden. Take a look at the left side of his dash. When he gets onto the straightaway, I'll circle it to show you exactly what I'm looking at. But there's a blue and green bar right there, and that seems to be where Joseph on his dash has his pack level. So as he drains it down, you see it's going down from green out into blue, and then watch as he hits the brakes into turn 2, you see that bar start to grow. So that's giving the driver a visual reference as to how much his...
Try it again.
Right there.
There you go.
How much is left in the pack. So it's down to nothing. Now watch as he gets on the brakes again in that same spot. You're going to see that bar grow up through the blue section into green as teammate Will Power gets out of the way through turn 5. So again, all very exploratory. Drivers will have done this in testing. They will have done this on the simulator. But it's the first time it's being done here on an official race weekend in competition.
See what happened to Newgarden.
So easy to do in turn 9. You come up over that hill. It is completely blind from the driver's standpoint. You cannot see where the car's going, and as you crest it, it just gets so light. The car just heaves upwards, removes a bunch of the weight on the tires. Car gets light, and he just got onto the curb there, which again, as this precipitation starts to fall, is just going to get more and more slick. Now we see some smoke coming out of the back of the number 78 of Augustine Canapino. A red flag's already been thrown, so suspecting maybe some oil is being dropped down.
And he's only in turn 2. He's in the keyhole, so he's got a long way to go.
I would just park that thing if there's oil coming off. That's a lot of smoke. Oh, you see the fire. Now that doesn't, it's not coming out of the headers. I wonder if it's something like the header tape is smoking.
Try to get some official there. We have some fire on the rear right.
I mean, IndyCar can tell if that engine is running or not. If it isn't, he should just park in this access road.
Or be told where the next safety truck is at. So they're there and ready. Didn't see the fire there.
Waving to the crowd?
Yeah, I'm here.
I think maybe signaling that he needs some help. That as well.
Well, there's been more news since we last talked 2 weeks ago at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. On Tuesday, we learned that Christian Lundgaard is going to be leaving Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing next year and driving that car, and Alexander Rossi we already knew was a free agent, and now his future is TBD. Rossi will finish up the season, which, by the way, has gone really, really well. Other than a couple of things outside of his control, he is pretty much even and coulda, woulda, shoulda, but would be ahead of Pato O'Ward in the championship. So Lundgaard to the 7. Rossi goes, and that's what's going to be fun. We can all speculate. You're his buddy. You're his podcast host, and I know this. You don't know where he's headed.
I don't. I mean, if anyone listens to Off Track with Hinch and Rossi and you heard it this week, you know that I found out on the show live just like the rest of you did. So, yeah, he very kindly dropped that bomb on Tim and I in the middle of one of our recordings. But, no, look, it's honestly, for me, this move sort of puts Rossi in a position almost akin to what we're seeing with Carlos Sainz over in Formula One. There are a few options. Rossi now by far, the best free agent on the market, and it's going to be interesting to see how those dominoes start to fall once a clear path is seen and decision is made from the Rossi camp. But as I've been watching Pelot and try to decipher his hybrid strategy, Santino Ferrucci, AJ Foyt Racing, up into the keyhole. I say up, it's quite an aggressive uphill brake zone. It doesn't look it on TV, but a massive inside lockup there. Really just holds that thing, hangs up all the way to the apex there. That's going to do some damage to that Firestone for sure. You can see Laguna Seca last time out. Nice top 10 for Ferrucci. Could very well be a strong result for him here. A couple of the road courses haven't gone stellar, but the last one coming off a high is always a good thing. Momentum is a real thing. Fantastic.
So if you're one of these teams, and Graham Rahal is in this camp, and he's, by the way, P1, has spoken that, yeah, these teams that have done the testing have a distinct advantage. Might they be better served while everyone is trying to figure this out to just keep it simple, let it regenerate naturally, and maybe don't outthink yourself about what advantage you get while you're regenerating as much as possible under braking.
I think
just go drive the car.
I think there's definitely an element of, the old saying, keep it simple, stupid. I think that's definitely something that could play into the hands of, honestly, not even just the teams that didn't get to do as much of the running. I think it could be something for these other teams as well, the ones that have done more of that development work. These are, again, they're not complicated systems on one hand. They are very complicated on another hand, just because they are so adjustable in a lot of ways. And trying to find that absolute perfect utilization can be, again, mentally quite taxing for both drivers and engineers. And ultimately, it's not giving you half a second a lap time. I think ideally, at a track like Mid-Ohio, we're looking at 2/10, which in qualifying I think is going to be major. I think we're going to talk a lot tomorrow about the drivers that absolutely nail it on the right lap with their tires and everything to get that perfect lap time. In the race itself, I think it's going to be less of a tool than it's potentially able to be at this point, just as teams get up to speed with it. Pato O'Ward has slotted into P2 behind this man here, Graham Rahal, in that United Rentals livery. Oh, sorry, the fifth third bank livery this weekend. I say that as Colton Herta now jumps to the top with a 107.6 for Andretti Global.
Okay, everybody's getting sorted now. Everybody's getting comfortable. They spent the beginning of this session probably trying to see what this button does. What does this button do? How does it feel when I push this? Going through the corner. Now let's get back to trying to go fast.
We've got 21 of the 27 cars on track, and as we ride on board with Pato O'Ward,
really hard first one.
you see something completely unique to this organization from what we've seen so far. 2 extra light meters on either side of the cockpit that, to me, are showing Pato the state of charge of his battery unit. You see they're full green right now, which coincides with the hybrid status graphic. And as we get out of turn 9, I think you'll see both this and these start moving down and deplete as he heads toward the all-star finish line. Let's watch here. Wasn't enough of a pull there. Maybe out of the last turn. He's going to make a liar out of me, isn't he? But again, there's more lights. There's more, data for the drivers to be observing. So there you go. You see it on there. It started to go as we see
Marcus
the number
Armstrong.
11, Marcus Armstrong. That's the Root livery for Chip Ganassi Racing this weekend, Root Insurance. And he is off in what looks like turn 8-9 area. I'm not sure exactly where he's come to a stop.
The start should be enabled. Try it here.
So let's see. He's out of the gravel. He's not.
E2 for that.
So here we're going through the process.
Working.
He's going to see if the hybrid
Just push the purple button, yeah?
will restart the car. And you can speak to this. It's not that simple.
It isn't. It's one of those things where
Not working.
once you do it, tell him to hold the button down a little longer. I had this problem yesterday in my session trying to figure this system out, and the red flag has flown.
By the way, it's also starting to rain a little bit harder, and maybe that impacted Jack Harvey going around in the Invest Dale Coyne Racing Honda.
Combination of things. Oh, yeah, you can see it.
Yeah.
Lots more rain coming down.
And oftentimes it is dry. You come up to a corner, and all of a sudden it's wet, and that's a surprise for a driver.
And here's the thing. There's a good chance the rain contributed to Armstrong going off here, and where he is, that's coming up over a blind crest. Let's see it here. This is the replay. Yeah, he lost it through. That's a flat-out section. It should be kind of not easy flat, but flat up over a blind corner. And while they would normally have given him more time to try to restart that engine, I think with the rain coming down, they didn't want another car losing control there and ending up in the same spot, having contact off track. So heads-up call from race control there to throw the red. Slow spin from Jack Harvey. Definitely contributing or being contributed to by this wet weather that we're seeing now.
He can check in on his way to the Chicago street race that we'll see this
Stacking
weekend.
up 2 cars.
After us on NBC, and how close was that for Felix Rosenqvist?
It is so tough. You have a 2.2 mile racetrack, 21, 22 cars on track, and Rosenqvist comes over, turn 6 there. Christian Rasmussen is just trying to slow up to get a gap. I couldn't see which car it was in front of him, but he's just trying to get a gap. Rosenqvist is trying to finish a lap, and unfortunately, it's just not conducive to either one achieving those goals. So. And this is the thing about a new surface. New surface, again, we got to give Mid-Ohio some credit here. They did this repave all the way back in, I want to say it was October last year. So it's had a little more time to cure and set in than what we've seen in some of these other ones. It's definitely not grippy out there. But as these tracks with the new pavement get wet, it often brings some of those oils up through the pores in the track and makes it treacherously slick. Pato O'Ward giving it his best crack right now, trying to figure out where the grip is. Noticeably staying away from the deploy button on the steering wheel. Huge correction there as he passes here in the commentary box. Oh, that's not a place you want to have a moment like that. Into turn 1. He's on the radio. I missed what he said. Did you catch it?
Did he say it's tight?
Copy that. We can come in. You want to?
Oh.
Yeah, folks. It's just no grip, but there's no water for the tire either.
This is a big moment. It's what we just saw here in the last corner. Doesn't even get to the curb. That was a one-handed correction. He had to get so much lock into it to keep it pointed straight.
It looks like there should be enough water for the rain tires.
The way it's falling, it looks like it, but it's tough to tell on this new pavement how wet it really is. You see Kyle breaking offline a little bit there down into turn 4. Accurate. I think there are ways to do it a little more simple, and that's kind of what... Rossi just sawing at the wheel through turn 1 there. Let's take a look back at some more on board as that rain continues to fall. It's just getting wetter and wetter out there. Big corrections through the second last corner, turn 12, then through 13. It's Tokyo Drift style almost. Never really going straight. Just look at those front tires. Look at how much they're moving and working. Just trying to keep the number 7 pointed straight.
So we're not going to get the ultimate comparison as to, that's what one thing people are looking at. How the speeds and the times compare to last year, because they never got to the alternates. But last year's fast time in practice 1 from Pato O'Ward was a minute 6.49. The second best was a minute 6.85. So only 0.2 off, and that's on the primaries.
Yeah.
So safe to say we would have, gotten at least a half a second,
Deploy.
if not more.
Tough to know exactly, but yeah.
Copy.
So the interesting message there. That was Brian Barnhart on the radio to Alex saying deploy, and that's for the way in. They wanted him to deploy the battery, deploy the charge, have it down as low as possible in the pit lane. Rossi comes on and says no chance. The reason for that is you have to be above a certain throttle percentage for the deployment to work. And for where he was on the racetrack and the conditions, there was no way he could hold a throttle that full in order to get it. So you get a very typical Rossi response. No chance. Colin Hurta giving a little love to the fans sitting out there in the rough weather. It's very kind of him to do, and the teammate of his is down with Georgia right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here with Marcus Armstrong as the rain continues to fall a little bit harder, it seems like, each minute. But Marcus, you had a moment out there, I would say. What was happening inside the cockpit?
Yeah, I had a moment through turn 7. Over the crest, kept it flat and just lost the rear. I thought I caught it, but I didn't, obviously. But obviously with this new hybrid power unit, there's a bit more weight to the rear. I'm not going to pull all the racing driver cards and tell excuses, but yeah, just lost the rear over the crest. It was a bit hit and miss, and yeah, but it's okay, and I think we can still use that set of tires tomorrow, so it's okay.
How valuable would this time be before the rain came?
It was very valuable. I mean, it's a new track surface here. It seems to be pretty grippy and smooth, so I was happy with the car. The car felt really good. Considering there's 105 pounds more weight and quite a rearwards weight distribution, it should have felt a lot more different than it did, but overall I was happy with it, and good potential for tomorrow.
Thanks, Marcus. On to tomorrow.